Alright, what's going on? I'm back with another replay cast, playing as a Skaven again. So we've got Deathmaster Snikch as our Lord. Got two squads of Plague Monks on the front, Warp Block Engineer, Clan Rat Spears in the back to protect the Warp Lightning Cannons and the Plague Claw Catapult, and two squads of Plague Monk Sensor Bearers. So we've got some Skaven Elite Infantry here. For my opponent, he's got Tehenhauin on a, what is this thing called? A Pterodon, something like that. So he's got Tehenhauin as his lord. He's got Skink cohorts, Source warriors, Skink cohorts with javelins, cohort of Sotek, which is a regiment of renowned red-crested skinks. And that appears to be mostly it for his starting army. He also has a Feral Bastiladon, and I think that's it. So let's get into it. Fast forward a little bit on the approach. Big shots from the Warp Lightning Cannon coming in on a Tehenhauin, so took him down to like 80% health. Plague Claw Catapult firing in on the Source Warriors. And so mostly what I'm going to be doing with my artillery is having my Plague Claw Catapult shoot at their infantry and having the Warp Lightning Cannons shoot at whatever large targets they've got. So whether it's Feral Bastiladons, whether it's Tehenhauin, you can see he's doing some dodging now after he took those first couple shots. Whoever it may be, that is what I'll be focusing on with those two artillery pieces. So for the Warp Block Engineer, I have brought the Death Frenzy, Scorch, and Flensing Ruin. So for Death Frenzy, I'm going to be putting that on my Lord a couple times. Scorch I'll use on infantry blobs when I get the opportunity to. And same thing with Flensing Ruin will be used in blob fights. So got a couple of Plague Monks sitting on top of this ramp over point 2. Same thing on the other side. Plague Monk Sensor Bearers over on point 1. Another one in the backfield. Kind of just waiting to see what they do. My opponent has a lot of troops and is putting some pressure on me. So what I'm doing is bringing in some Clan Rats with shields on both sides. Bringing my Plague Monks on the left side back a little bit. I didn't feel that I was going to be able to pressure point 2 because of how many troops my enemy has. He definitely has a numbers advantage on me right now. I've also got some Wolf Rats with poison coming in. I brought the only Wolf Rat squads I brought were the poison variant because I didn't feel like I needed the armor piercing value from the other version of them. So more fighting from the Plague Claw Catapult. Big damage and leadership debuff to the Skink cohort. They really do not like that. The Tehenhauin is around 50% health, a little bit higher. And at this point, I'm going to start moving around. So got some guys going downhill against these Source Warriors. I've got Deathmaster Snikch, the Warlock Engineer, excuse me, and a squad of Plague Monks charging downhill into some Source Warriors. Again, the Plague Monks are anti-infantry, and the Sensor Bearers are actually not anti-infantry, but they do have a leadership debuff, and they also have armor piercing value. So my Wolf Rats over here are starting to take some damage because they run in the Skink cohort and the Chameleon Stalkers. They're going to be reinforced by some Clan Rats. My opponent's got his Lord coming over here as well as the Feral Bastiladon. And I don't really have a solid, looks like he thought better of charging it. I don't have a solid anti-large troop down here. So the Warp Lightning Cannon is really my main anti-large unit. Deathmaster Snikch is kind of a general damage dealer, so he's gonna be working on this Feral Bastiladon, and you know the Weeping Blade is bringing the armor down from that thing. So some of the other troops will be able to get some damage in, even if they're not anti-large. Plague Monks on this side taking a beating. They've got another Bastiladon over here, not a Feral Bastiladon, but one with a Revivification crystal on them. So I believe this is the one that provides a heal for allies. Yep. And Tehenhauin is joining that combat. Clan Rats over on the left side attacking the Skink cohort. So part of the reason I brought the Clan Rats with shields is because I figured that the Lizardmen oftentimes bring cheap shooting, whether it's stalkers or Skink cohorts or things like that, and I wanted to be able to absorb some of that damage with shields. Clan Rats with spears going over to take out this Feral Manticore and try to help the Nanny Bubo sharpshooters, which is kind of like a sniping unit. You can see Deathmaster Snikch and the Warlock Engineer were able to take out the Feral Bastiladon. The thing's going to be running off the field. More Wolf Rats coming in to support the Sensor Bearers over here against the Chameleon Stalkers and the, I believe this is a Skink cohort. So you can see their leadership debuff is actually doing pretty well with chasing some of these troops off. I don't think a lot of the Lizardmen infantry have great leadership to begin with, but the Weeping Blades are really, not the Weeping Blade, is that what it's called? The Contaminated effect is really taking its toll on Lizardmen. More troops coming over here trying to threaten my artillery pieces, so I've got clan rats with shields and clan rats with spears going over to intercept the skinks and the saurus. The manticore was dealt with by these clan rats with spears, along with some shooting from the wart lightning cannon. I did turn about face over to them, and so unfortunately the warplock Jezzails took a lot of damage during that combat. Tehenhauin's still pretty beat up. He didn't take too much damage, if any at all, while he was in the mix against the plague monks. But luckily for me, Deathmaster Snikch, my warlock engineer, my center bearers are bearing down on the cohort of Sotek and the Bastildon over here. You can see Snikch is starting to take some damage. Some of these big targets are going to put some hurting on him. He is infantry size and he doesn't have a ton of health, although he is a good duelist character. More wolf rats coming in to try to intercept some of their backline pressure. So they had some feral cold ones that were trying to get around this way, so I just ran straight into them with the wolf rats. They ended up rampaging, which was lucky for me, and I'm going to have another squad potentially going after them. Let's see what I end up doing with them. Tehenhauin joined the combat, but took some pretty bad damage pretty quickly, and so he's going to be backing out and trying to save himself. More shots coming in from the Plague Claw catapult on top of the feral cold ones. I wanted to make sure that they couldn't pressure me, so normally I wouldn't be shooting at cavalry with the Plague Claw catapult, but I did in this situation. Looks like a little bit of miss micro for me on the wolf rats with poison. My opponent is ahead in victory points, but I kind of expected that to be the case in the beginning. I really wanted to take good engagements. You can see I'm ahead in the gold value, and after I had done that, I wanted to go downhill and take point 2. Ripperdactyl riders on the way over the middle, diving in on top of point 2, and they're going to be looking to get on top of my lord. You can see Deathmaster Snikch is poisoned, so his combat efficiency is going to be down a little bit. I do have the Death Frenzy popped on him, and so that's good. I really didn't have too many opportunities to use his Deathmaster Sigil ability because it only works on lords and heroes. And I don't believe they brought any heroes. I think they only brought Tehenhauin in this matchup, and he's flying, so there weren't too many situations where he was near Deathmaster Snikch. But regardless, you can see some unsummoning going on from both of us. Wolf rats pressuring the skink skirmishers. That's going to be a good matchup for them. Feral cold ones. Actually, this is cold one spear riders, the Hopak cohort. So it looks like he's got some regiment of renowned cavalry going over to deal with my wolf rats. And the sensor bearers, they're both pretty low on model count, on leadership, and whatever else, health included. So they're going to be getting chased off. Artillery is still firing in, both running pretty low on ammunition. The warp lightning cannons still have a decent amount of shots, but a little under half. And now I've got point 2. So now I'm going to be winning the victory point pace, and I'll start catching up on that. So looking to push these Source Warriors off. Feral Cold One's coming downhill, so downhill charge is going to be good for them. My opponent just has a skink cohort on point 3. You can see I've got the Warplock Jezzails back on the field shooting at these Ripperdactyls as they fly around. And yeah, just interesting. It's interesting how you can work with the terrain in this map with the kind of bowl situation going on point 2. If you have any kind of firepower that has an arc on it, can work really well on these pit fights down here. And if you don't, you really have to pay attention and kind of move around based on the angles and try to get good shots. Luckily, the Ripperdactyls and Tehenhauin were flying, and so when they're floating up in the air above point 2, I'm able to get shots on them even from the backfield. And these, if I zoom in a little bit, you can see these angles don't become as much of a problem for line of sight and whatnot. So, got some more Plague Monks on the field coming down. They're going to be looking to join the mix on point 2, and at this point you can see my opponent is starting to bring a lot more large troops, and so this is something that is going to be a problem for Deathmaster Snikch, because you can see them charging in here, and he is kind of on his lonesome. He's got some clan rats coming to help him, but the Warlock Engineer is not going to be providing too much support. I need to get some mass around him, especially another Bastildon coming in. I think this is one that had fled earlier in the combat. Luckily for me, I do have the Poison Wind mortars that just came on the field and have been getting some shooting off on the right side, helping out in the infantry fight. And my Plague Claw catapult appears to be out of ammunition, so that's going to need to be unsummoned. Looks like I'm not noticing that yet in the match, but that will get unsummoned at some point. And just looking to try to hold on at point 2. Unfortunately, my opponent with the Saurus warriors and some of the monsters on there, and man, look at the firepower coming from the salamander hunting pack. Luckily for me, this is anti-large, and I don't have too many large targets in the field. But trying to reposition the warp lightning cannons so that they can get better shots on the Umbral Tide. Point 3 still uncontested. Point 1, my opponent's got some Saurus on top of, and I'm going to be countering them with Plague Monks, Sensor Bearers. More Plague Monks coming from my main reinforcement area. They're going to be going downhill. You can see the Plague Claw catapult just got unsummoned. My poor Warlock Engineer is getting just crushed by this Feral Bastiladon. This is not a situation he wants to be in. And Deathmaster Snikch is on the run. Luckily for me, he's running uphill towards my troops. You will run into situations where your Lord gets broken, or he has his leadership cracked, and he ends up running the opposite way of where your guys are. And at that point, you're kind of screwed, because it's going to be hard to get his leadership back up and get him some support. So that's something, the positioning on your Lord and your troops, you really want to be cognizant of how that's all lined up. Skink cohort coming over here on the side, getting a flank. And you can see right now, on this part of the map, I need to get some more presence from infantry. My Warp Lightning Cannons, my Warp Lock Jezzails are going to be threatened. Deathmaster Snikch doesn't have too much support, and all I've got is some Clan Rat Spears right now. Another squad coming over here to support, and just trying to get some more men on the field over here. This side of the map is looking alright. Their Feral Bastiladon is not going to be too much of a problem over here. Really all I've got is some infantry fighting this side, and although he could come up here and do some pretty good damage, I'm not too worried about him. I brought in the Hell Pit Abomination to kind of deter him from doing that, and you know, I had a lot of points in my pocket, which is part of the reason I was saying I was not worried about him. So Chameleon Stalkers coming over here. I did not see this flank happening. These guys, of course, in their name they have Stalk. So that is one of their abilities that they have. So didn't see them coming around the side, but luckily I was able to respond quickly with some Wolf Rats with poison. So they're going to be dealing with these guys. I believe they'll always win that trade. So their combat stats are not great. They're not horrible, but Wolf Rats should win that fight. Deathmaster Snikch is on the run. So my Hell Pit Abomination is going after the Umbral Tide. Unfortunately, got intercepted by some Feral Cold Ones. They got a Bastiladon and more Feral Cold Ones in there, so a lot of large targets, like I was saying. That's part of the reason I brought the Hell Pit Abomination for the one that was over here. But he fled back and kind of went to sit on point 2 and fight with his buddies. So more shooting coming in, infantry battle getting pushed back. My opponent has brought some fleeing Saurus warriors back once their leadership recovered, and they're going to be getting some capture weight on point 1. At least they will be soon. They haven't noticed it yet, but I recall that happening. The Chameleon Stalkers are getting chased off. Skirmishers looks like are getting chased off as well, or this is just a standard skink cohort. Snikch is still alive, so luckily for me, he's not. The loss of him is not giving me any kind of debuff yet. Feral Cold One's charging uphill into the Clan Rat Spears. These guys they don't have too much left in them. So although these are a large target charging into a spear unit, you know, these guys aren't like elite infantry or even like mid-tier infantry. They're pretty low quality troops, so they're getting chased off. These guys are rampaging, are out of control. I'm not sure exactly how the difference in those mechanics works. You can see a Bastiladon with a Revivification Crystal fleeing back to point 3 and just looking to sit there and kind of act as a deterrent. Warp Lightning Cannon is still firing into the Umbral Tide. You can see I'm starting to get some serious damage on those guys. That anti-large damage from these cannons is just pretty incredible. Poison Wind Mortars making the Skink Skirmishers run. I actually just realized that they do damage over time from their firing. It's like, I'm not sure, it doesn't say how long it lasts for, but 12 to 25 damage per second, so it's not bad. Chameleon Stalkers recovered. They're coming back to interfere with my Warp Lightning Cannons. I did not notice that with the Wolf Rats with poison. Probably should have tried to chase them all the way off the field, but Luckily, Deathmaster Snikch is over here looking to intercept. My opponent is a good bit ahead in victory points. So right now, I'm looking to just try to push everything I can over onto point 2 and take this back so that I can start catching up there. And I'm going to need a triple cap. So my idea is go for point 2, try to take that over. Once I get it, then go uphill with everything and take point 3 and just try to keep an eye on everything. So you can see the source warriors are coming back this way. I realized I needed to address that because if I don't get a triple cap, I'm going to lose. So the teeth breakers are coming up here to get some shots on the source warriors, try to push them off. I believe I have a squad of infantry coming to help over here as well. So Clan Rats with shields coming downhill. Again, pretty weak infantry unit, but they'll deal with the source warriors as is necessary. And we do have point 2 now, and now we're going to get point 3. So Wolf Rats with poison charging into some source warriors with spears and shields, and that's not going to be a good trade, but I need to start getting capture weight on here. And Deathmaster Snikch, he'll do really well against these troops. Same thing with the Plague Monks, they're anti-infantry. The Source Warriors don't have too much armor that they'll negate much of the effectiveness of the Plague Monks. So got that going. The Feral Bastiladon is looking to get some capture weight on point 2, chasing off my infantry, or my Wolf Rats, which are infantry size. And this Warlock Engineer is about to get charged, and he just takes a big headbutt. That cracks his leadership, he's going to be routing. And that's game, so I'll just fast forward through the end. I was really trying to push it to the end and see if I could get a triple cap, but probably could have conceded. But it was hard for me to tell what was going to happen for like the last 15 seconds or so, 15-30 seconds. Anyways, well played to my opponent. I had a pretty good lead on damage value at the beginning, but I did not have the answers for his reinforcements. The large targets coming on the field were really a problem for me, so something for me to keep in mind with the Lizardmen. So as far as damage value, Deathmaster Snikch, not so great. Warlock Engineer did alright, given how much I spent on him. He earned his value. Oh my gosh, the Warp Lightning Cannons did a ton of work, so luckily I was able to use them pretty well. They even got shut down a couple times, but still got their value, and I don't believe I ever resummoned them, so it's pretty good for a unit that costs, I want to say, 1,000 something. Plague Monk Sensor Bearers did pretty well. Plague Claw Catapult did decent. I want to say this thing cost 900. Plague Monks, nothing special. Clan Rats with Spears were alright. Hellpit Abomination did horribly. That was my fault. I should not have charged him downhill into the pit without more support. So this guy cost what, 1,800, so I really shit the bed with this guy, but that's how you learn. Warplock Giselles did alright. Poison Wind Mortars did alright. Rattling Gunners did horrible. Wolf Rats did pretty well. Probably could have used more of them. And nothing special going on there. So Tehenhauin, he didn't really get much done. That's probably where a lot of the value for my Warp Lightning Cannons came from. Source Warriors seemed like they did pretty well. Skinks, whatnot. Not too much to look at from them. I think they did decently with the Skinks. I'm assuming we're going to see some big value on some of these troops. So right, the Umbral Tide got pretty good value. But these, that's interesting. Some of the damage on these guys is not as high as I would have thought it was. And where are the... He had a Feral Stegodon. Why am I not seeing that? This guy, okay. Feral Bastiladon. All the different creatures confuse me with the Lizardmen. So, yeah, I guess figuring out how to deal with these large targets, they don't have too much value on them. So maybe it was more so the Source Warriors that I was struggling with. For me, when I was playing this matchup, I felt like I needed more anti-large answers. And looking at the value that they got, it might not have been the case. Maybe I misread that while I was playing. And maybe it's just one of those big thing gets your attention situations. But either way, well played to my opponent. It was a fun matchup. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.